Picture two nights, almost exactly a year apart, at the same fashion house with the same designer at the center. On the first night, Meghan Markle is the story. A dramatic entrance in custom white Balenciaga, cameras screaming her name, headlines built around her rather than the clothes. During the second, Pierpaolo Piccioli unveils his first full couture collection for Balenciaga, the absolute peak of his new tenure. And Meghan is nowhere in the building. That sharp contrast between those two nights, roughly a year apart, at the exact same house, under the very same designer, is what we need to trace carefully. I think it tells us far more about where Meghan currently stands in the world she's been trying to build than almost any single headline could ever manage on its own. Inside Meghan Markle's current fashion freeze-out, she was dropped by Balenciaga just a year after she thought her self-invited appearance at Paris Fashion Week would turn her entire career around for good. Let's look at exactly what is being alleged here, because the core claim is incredibly pointed and deserves to be stated clearly before we add any interpretation. Journalist Paula Froelich reported a fashion source claiming Meghan was deliberately left off the guest list for the second show purely because of her behavior at the first one. The reasoning, according to that insider, was blunt. Pierpaolo Piccioli wanted the focus on his collection, not on Meghan. Neither Balenciaga nor Pierpaolo Piccioli has confirmed any kind of formal ban, and we have to be honest that there is no hard proof here, but her absence is undeniable. She was not there. And an absence this loud at an event this massive speaks volumes on its own, no matter what any official PR statement tries to claim. She notes that Pierpaolo Piccioli's highly anticipated couture debut for Balenciaga took place this week amid the scenic courtyards and palatial steps of Paris. It was stunning, awe-inspiring, just pure perfection. And that is exactly what makes the timing so incredibly brutal for Meghan, deserving far more attention than it originally got in the press. She had just quietly returned to the United Kingdom with Harry and the children for a private visit to Highgrove, finally meeting Charles and Camilla in person after a long period of distance, yet that meeting produced absolutely none of the elements that turn a royal visit into a major public moment. No balcony appearances, no official family photographs, and no walks beside the king in front of flashing cameras. She slipped in quietly, met in private, and left the same way. That might be exactly what a fractured family relationship needs right now, but it is far less helpful for a public figure whose entire brand relies on being seen. Because, as Paula Froelich's source revealed, she was simply not invited, not after what went down last time. Paula Froelich concludes that Meghan has now been completely blacklisted by the high fashion world. The source added there is no way Pierpaolo Piccioli would have her back. He wants the focus to be entirely on the clothes, not on her. Remember, he quietly deflated her entire narrative in an interview with The Cut, explaining that he and Meghan had only met a few years back. They had simply texted on occasion, and she was the one who reached out to ask if she could attend. A single striking Balenciaga photo could have completely rewritten the narrative of her entire week. Instead of looking like someone who slipped quietly in and out of a closed-door family gathering, while Harry's courtroom loss and awkward podcast moments ruled the news at home, she could have appeared untouchable, global, and highly coveted in the rooms that truly matter. The opportunity was right at her fingertips, but she simply was not in the room. If you are finding this breakdown helpful, hitting the like button really supports our channel in producing more of these deep dive comparison videos. Stay with me, because Pierpaolo Piccioli's own account of how last year's appearance actually came together paints a starkly different picture from the one Meghan's team spun at the time. The lows are incredibly low. The self-proclaimed dragon slayer lost his court case against the Mail, while Meghan Markle is now exposed as totally rejected by the fashion elite. And this has to sting, because 9 months ago, this was supposed to be the great reinvention of Meghan Markle, the launchpad for her dream of breaking into high fashion now. It is just not happening. Meghan's team initially framed her connection with Pierpaolo Piccioli as a deep, multi-year relationship, describing it as an intense creative collaboration and a trusted partnership. They used language that made her sound almost like a private muse to the designer. That is a highly specific grand claim. But when Pierpaolo Piccioli spoke to the cut after his show, his version of the story was far more grounded. He explained that Meghan had simply messaged him directly, asking to attend, and that they had merely texted as casual acquaintances over the years. His team kept her presence a secret simply because he liked surprises. According to him, that was the entire story. According to the man running the show, Meghan asked to go, and he agreed. On its own, there is absolutely nothing embarrassing about that. Most people would completely understand asking an acquaintance if you can support their big moment. The real issue is what happened next. Her PR team took that minor gesture and spun it into something far more grand, framing it as proof that the elite fashion world had specifically hand-selected her. 9 months later, that same fashion establishment held its most crucial Balenciaga runway event of the year and seemingly invited everyone but her. It seems every time she gets near that elite circle, her behavior ends up rubbing people the wrong way. Let's be entirely honest, those high fashion circles can be incredibly elitist and full of themselves. Look, I can't stand fashion snobs, but even they are completely repulsed by her behavior. They are just not going to tolerate it anymore. It's not like she was stuck across the globe either. She was actually already in Europe. She had the team, the security, and every logistics excuse to show up if she was truly wanted. Instead, Demi Moore, Naomi Watts, and Cynthia Ravo filled those front row seats. Meghan's seat was completely empty. That vacant spot hurts far more than any official Balenciaga statement ever could, simply because they didn't have to say a single word. No PR denials were needed, and Pierpaolo didn't have to explain a thing about where their friendship stood. The runway show went on, reviews rolled in, the photos went viral, and she was just completely left out of the frame. And this is right where those old rumors about her behavior at her first show actually start to carry some real weight. Even if every single detail hasn't been officially verified by a spokesperson on the record, insiders say she hogged all the spotlight, showing up late, dragging out the photo ops, and hijacking a runway moment that belonged entirely to Pierpaolo. Balenciaga hasn't commented on those rumors, and Meghan's team completely denies the whole story. She sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Her behavior was just weird, starting from the moment she showed up to his very first debut show. Remember, this was Pierpaolo's big Balenciaga debut, a massive milestone. Yet, she walked in late. Rule number 1, you don't show up late. But you absolutely do not keep people waiting when Anna Wintour arrives 30 minutes early. In this world, Anna Wintour is the final word, period. Yet the gossip feels incredibly believable to the public because it mirrors exactly what they watched go down that evening. Grand entrance, flashbulbs, viral clips, headlines that swallowed the actual close. Then there was that front row video. Meghan was giggling while everyone else sat perfectly still. It happened right as a model reportedly stumbled. Her team denied she was mocking the model, and we still don't have proof of what actually caused her to laugh in that video. But Meghan does not play by verified facts. She operates in a pure image economy. Just 5 seconds of awkward footage can completely define how people remember you. That video spread like wildfire, sparking its own massive backlash. Instead of the new collection driving the conversation like the designer wanted, her behavior became the story. Other brands have learned this the hard way. Unfortunately, when you do business with Meghan, there is simply no attention left for anyone else. And that spotlight is almost always bad press. Brands assume her massive fame and high public profile will give them positive exposure. They hope some of that star power rubs off. But it backfires, and consumers don't actually buy the things she promotes. That is the fundamental issue underneath this entire situation. We should probably just say it out loud instead of beating around the bush. Meghan doesn't just enter a room. She completely takes it over. She brings a whole circus with her, the marriage, royal drama, heavy security, and expressions dissected frame by frame. The designer instantly loses control of the narrative. The runway show stops being about fashion and becomes another tiring chapter in her personal soap opera. A year ago, that noise might have actually helped Pierpaolo. Having someone that famous drop in unannounced gets people talking no matter what. But this time, with Demi Moore, Cynthia Aravo, and a whole front row of actual stars confirmed, he didn't need Meghan's unpredictable baggage. His runway was packed with real talent and plenty of guaranteed press. He could finally let his defining career moment shine without worrying about someone hijacking the front row for self-promotion. That is exactly why this sudden snub, whatever the real behind-the-scenes excuse is, must hurt deeply for someone trying so hard to stay relevant. Meghan has spent years trying to prove she still belongs on the global stage without her royal title. Netflix was meant to make her a serious power player. Her Spotify deal was supposed to give her an influential voice, and her lifestyle brand was supposed to build a real business empire. But Paris fashion, especially Balenciaga, was supposed to give her the one thing those deals couldn't promise: immediate, unquestioned prestige, elite access without the royal duties, high couture, front row status, and rubbing shoulders with actual Hollywood royalty. She wanted photos showing that the most exclusive doors still swing open for her. But those exclusive doors stay closed when hosts decide to shut them. A title gets you noticed, but it cannot force a second invitation. PR people can claim she is a close creative partner, but that means nothing if the designer won't say it. A flashy entrance gets headlines for a day, but it guarantees nothing down the road. And she desperately needed a major win in Paris, especially since her recent trip to the United Kingdom failed to give her that big public victory. She got briefly in touch with Charles and Camilla, but she didn't get any content. No photographs to plaster across magazine covers for months. And certainly no public reconciliation that people could actually see and celebrate. But there is a very specific timing detail right alongside her failed UK trip that makes this whole contrast hurt a lot more. Right around then, the King's Foundation hosted a Chanel-supported event at Highgrove to honor students studying traditional craft skills. To be fair, nobody expected Meghan to show up there, and it would be a stretch to say Chanel directly shut her out. That is not how it went down. But the symbolism? Striking. She was physically close to a royal estate where monarchy and one of the world's most powerful fashion houses collaborated in full public view, yet she remained completely on the outside, linked to neither side. Charles had the weight of the crown. Chanel had a real breathing collaboration. Young designers got actual couture training unfolding right there. Meghan had a quiet meeting with zero photos to prove it, and a Balenciaga tie-up that was just exposed as incredibly thin. We need to look closer at the bigger pattern here, one stretching far beyond this single fashion moment. Every massive brand Meghan tried to latch onto, after walking away from the palace, streaming giants, podcast networks, fashion houses, eventually reaches the same hard truth. Her brand brings immense noise, but that noise fights against the project instead of lifting it up. Netflix expected a raw documentary, but got a massive public debate over optics rather than substance. Spotify wanted a major podcast host, and that multi-million-dollar deal simply faded away without a whisper. Now, Auction House apparently wants a designer's collection to make headlines, not the guest watching from the front row. Having this happen 3 times is no coincidence. It is a pattern, and patterns always say far more than any isolated incident ever could. This is not just bad timing. It strikes at the heart of the identity she is fighting to construct. She wants to be seen as independent from the crown, but her title still does most of the heavy commercial lifting. Her upcoming MasterChef Australia appearance is marketed around contestants preparing a dish fit for a duchess. Not for an entrepreneur, not a producer, but a duchess. That royal tag is the ultimate hook, because marketers know her lifestyle credentials simply cannot compete with it on their own. She walked away from her royal duties, but she is still selling the royal prestige that came with them. She rejects the palace rules, but clings to the crown title. She demands total family privacy, yet her entire business model relies on constant public exposure. While she wants to be respected as a serious entrepreneur, television networks still introduce her as the woman who married a prince. A deep, detailed breakdown instead of just the usual surface headlines. Hitting the like button really helps us reach others who want this kind of deep dive. Stick around, because there is actually one bright spot in her recent news we should look at before the tougher reality hits. Balenciaga makes this contradiction worse, not better. High fashion was supposed to prove she had outgrown the palace, showing off an independent network of elite designers, famous actors, and powerful friends. Instead, the biggest fashion moment of Piero's Balenciaga run took place, and even her royal title could not get her past the front door. To be fair, she does have some genuinely good news. A Daytime Emmy nomination for With Love Meghan in the Outstanding Lifestyle category is a real win after months of rough headlines. Yet even this win quietly highlights just how far she has drifted from the high fashion identity she chased in Paris last year. An Emmy nomination for a food-focused lifestyle show much like MasterChef, which sells simple goods like jam, honey, tea, and wine. There are even rumors of a cookbook. She is no longer chasing a permanent spot in high fashion. Instead, she is pivoting toward kitchens, gardens, and staged domestic warmth. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that business model. The real issue is her apparent refusal to commit to just one lane. Cooking at home as a relatable neighbor while trying to be an untouchable duchess at elite fashion shows. She wants both. She wants viewers to see her as warm and ordinary, then immediately turns around to remind everyone that a meal must be fit for royalty. Demanding palace-level privacy in Britain while chasing red carpet exposure in Paris, she expects every single contradiction to work perfectly in her favor. We also have to ask what Pierpaolo actually wants for his own brand moving forward, regardless of what Meghan's team thinks. Top designers cementing their names at historic fashion houses have every reason to tightly protect their own artistic narrative, especially during these career-defining moments, even if they really are close friends and we have no reason to think otherwise. That bond does not automatically mean a front-row ticket every time he launches a major new collection. Friends get left off exclusive guest lists all the time for reasons that have nothing to do with drama and everything to do with careful brand management. The issue for Meghan is that her massive public brand has never left room for that kind of simple, low-key explanation. Everything is painted as either total acceptance or a brutal snub, and her absence this time fell right into that second bucket. Fair to Pierpaolo or not, this Balenciaga moment may have shown her exactly where her media strategy runs straight into a brick wall. High fashion does not need to start a public feud or release statements. It can simply stop calling and dress someone else instead. It can easily give that prime front row seat to someone who brings organic buzz without dragging a royal soap opera along with them. That reality should seriously worry her, because public rejection is one of the very few things her PR team cannot spin. A dead podcast becomes a fresh start. A brief, photo-free royal meeting is labeled as progress. Even a struggling lifestyle brand is called an expression of joy, while criticism is twisted into a speech about authenticity. But nobody on her team can rewrite someone else's guest list. No amount of carefully curated Instagram posts can conjure up an invitation that simply never existed. No sleek video can magically place her inside a show that went on perfectly fine without her. The real power of last year's Paris appearance was never about the dress anyway. It was that quiet hint that she still had real access to the rooms that truly mattered. Walking into a room full of cameras was proof that leaving the royal family had not actually destroyed her status. For one single night, she looked like a woman who had built a brand new court with a major designer putting her at the very center of his world. This year quietly shattered that illusion. Pierpaolo had his defining moment. Without her, Balenciaga won its praise. The major stars showed up. Everyone was there except her. The cameras flashed all night, but she was never in frame. The fashion world kept moving and it did not wait. That is why this specific story hurts more than an ordinary negative headline. Meghan's public brand relies on the idea that powerful people still want her in high society rooms, no matter what the royal family is willing to give her. The logic was always simple. One door closes, another opens. But right now, those remaining doors are shrinking fast. Instead of a massive Netflix empire, she has one lifestyle show struggling to stay relevant. Instead of an influential podcast network, there are just old clips from a canceled deal. Instead of a major fashion partnership, there was one surprise appearance, followed by a very loud, very public absence. Instead of a real public royal reunion, we got a secret meeting, no photos, no proof at all. None of this proves she is permanently blacklisted. That would be a massive stretch. No one watching from the outside can possibly confirm that with any real certainty. That anonymous source could easily be exaggerating the entire situation. There could easily be a boring, private reason she did not get invited that has nothing to do with drama. Pierpaolo might still count her as a close friend, regardless of who made his guest list. That is all worth pointing out, but none of it changes the deeply uncomfortable reality at the heart of this entire situation. Her team sold last year's event as the start of a major partnership, yet the biggest moment of that supposed future went down without her even being in the room. Last year, Paris proved she still mattered. This year, Paris proved it did not need her at all. Back then, she arrived to flashing cameras and massive headlines. This year, those same cameras flashed for everyone else in the room. Her team called her a collaborator, but she simply was not there. So, what happens now? Will she show up in some other front row very soon just to prove to the world that she has not been quietly blacklisted from high fashion? Does she lean harder into the Emmy nomination, MasterChef, and cookbook rumors simply because lifestyle television is the one lane still generating reliable attention? Or does she finally have to accept that one dramatic night in Paris was never going to make her a permanent member of the fashion elite? Balenciaga never had to put out a headline saying she was dropped. That empty chair did the job perfectly. Between a secret UK visit with absolutely no photos, a royal title used to sell recipes on television, and a fashion comeback that ended before it even started, Meghan is facing the exact kind of narrative her publicists have never figured out how to spin. What do you honestly think is going on? Was this a calculated snub from Pierpaolo, or are critics reading way too much into a simple scheduling conflict that actually means nothing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.